My grandma gave us equal share portfolios as kids. My brother sold his and now he and his girlfriend want mine. When our grandmother gifted my brother and me equal investment portfolios as kids, she hoped to set us up for a secure future. But while I let mine grow, my brother cashed his out for a brand new car. Now, years later, he and his girlfriend have come knocking, demanding a share of my success. When I was 4 years old and my older brother Liam was 16, our grandmother did something generous for both of us. She wanted to give us a good start in life, so she set up investment portfolios in our names. It wasn't anything huge, but it was enough to grow over time and help us in the future. Our dad was put in charge of the accounts until we were old enough to take control ourselves. Liam got access first, of course. He was much older than me, and by the time he turned 19, he was eager to use the money. I remember that time clearly. He didn't waste a second. As soon as he could, he cashed out the whole portfolio. It was around $15,000. To him, it felt like a fortune. With the money, he bought a brand new Honda. I still remember the way he looked when he brought it home. He was so proud of that car. He washed it every other day, kept it spotless, and drove it like it was a sports car. He revved the engine in front of his friends, acting like the sound alone made him rich. He had this look in his eyes, like he had made it. But to me, even as a little kid, it didn't seem like a smart move. Back then, I didn't understand much about money, but I understood enough to notice how fast things disappeared. Liam's money was gone in a flash, and not long after, the car wasn't in great shape anymore either. Things break. Life happens. But he didn't seem to think much beyond the moment. He was living for the now, and that meant spending whatever he had, whenever he had it. I was younger, and in a way, that helped me. I had more time to watch, to learn, and to think. Watching Liam go through his money like water left an impression on me. I didn't want to make the same mistakes. I didn't want to blow my chance. So when I turned 18 and it was time for me to take over my portfolio, I didn't cash it out. I went to our dad instead and asked for his help to invest it wisely. Dad was glad I asked. We sat down together and talked about options. We put a big chunk into Apple stock and spread the rest into other stable investments. I didn't touch the money. I let it sit, let it grow, and I kept learning more about how investing worked. Over the next few years, that small portfolio became something bigger, much bigger than I expected. By the time I had full control over the account, it had grown into real wealth. I didn't feel rich, but I felt secure. Liam, on the other hand, wasn't doing so well. His car had broken down years ago. The money he had once bragged about was long gone, and with it, so were his chances to start fresh the way our grandmother had hoped. I never made fun of him for it. That's not who I am. But the difference between us became very clear as time went on. I had something to fall back on, something solid. He didn't. Liam had regrets, lots of them. He talked about how he wished he had waited, how he should have listened to Dad, how he thought the car would change everything. But regret doesn't build a future. Over the years, Liam struggled a lot. He couldn't hold down a steady job. He never saved. He didn't plan. Every time he got a little money, it vanished. He lived in the moment, the way he always had. And even though I saw the pattern, I couldn't just watch him fall apart. So I helped him. When he fell behind on rent, I paid his landlord. When his car broke down again and he couldn't afford repairs, I sent him money. When he got into trouble, something about a loan he couldn't pay back and a lender who was getting aggressive, I bailed him out. Each time, he swore it was the last time. "Just this once, bro. I swear," he'd say, and I believed him. At least at first. I wanted to. He was my brother. But after the third time, then the fourth, then the fifth, I started to see what was really going on. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't just tough breaks. It was Liam. He never changed. He didn't want to, because he knew I would always be there to catch him. One night, I finally confronted him. I couldn't keep doing it. I had to say something. "You keep blowing through money," I told him. "What's your plan?" He laughed, like I had just asked him something ridiculous. "Plan? I just need to get back on my feet. One big break, and I'm set." I sighed. "That's what you always say." He gave me this crooked grin. "And you always help." And that was the problem. He was right. I did help. Every time. I told myself I had to stop. But then something happened that changed everything. It started with a knock on my door. It was late in the evening. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was just settling in for the night when I heard it. 3 loud knocks. I paused, confused, and walked toward the front door. When I opened it, there she was, Madison, Liam's girlfriend. She leaned casually against the door, arms crossed like she owned the place. She wore a sleek black blazer and heels, dressed like she had just come from work. Her makeup was perfect, her hair done neatly, but her eyes, those gave everything away. Cold, sharp, and full of arrogance. "We need to talk," she said. Before I could say anything, she pushed right past me, walking into my apartment like she had every right to be there. I turned around slowly, shutting the door behind her. "Do we, though?" She let out a dramatic sigh, rolling her eyes like I was being unreasonable. "Look," she said. "I'll get straight to the point." She crossed the room and stood near my coffee table, not bothering to sit. "You got way more than Liam, and that's not fair." I blinked, stunned for a second. "He got the same amount I did," I said. "He just spent his." She scoffed like I had just told her the sky was green. "You had Daddy invest yours. Liam didn't get that chance." I folded my arms. "He could have. He chose not to." Her smirk faded and her voice turned sharp. "You're seriously going to hoard all that money while your own brother is out there struggling to make rent? What kind of person does that? To family?" I stayed calm. "I didn't force him to blow through 15 grand. Madison stepped forward, not yelling, but with a tone that made her words sting. "You're being selfish. He's family. He needs your help." I felt my jaw tighten. "I have helped him. More than once. Rent, bills, car repairs, even bailing him out when he got into trouble. But this?" I shook my head. "No, not happening." She narrowed her eyes and took another step closer. Her voice dropping low. "You'll regret this." Something snapped inside me. A slow burn of anger rose from my chest. I'd had enough. "Get out!" Her expression flickered. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." I pointed to the door. "Leave, before I throw you out." For a second, she looked like she might explode. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She turned sharply, storming past me, and slammed the door so hard the picture frames on the wall rattled. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence that followed. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. About a week later, I found something in my mailbox. It stood out right away, an envelope that looked expensive. Thick, cream-colored paper. No handwriting, just a printed label with my name and address. It looked official. At first, I thought it was some kind of junk mail or maybe an offer from a bank. Then I saw Liam's name in the return address section. I brought it inside and opened it, expecting, well, I didn't know what to expect, but not this. Inside was a typed letter, written in formal legal language, the kind you'd expect from a lawyer. I sat down at the kitchen table and started reading. The letter claimed that our grandmother had always intended for the investments to be shared equally between us, even in the long term. It said that while Liam had received only $15,000 when he cashed his portfolio, I was now in possession of a much larger amount. And because of that, I was legally and morally obligated to give him half of what I had. I read that part twice, making sure I hadn't misunderstood. Then came the threat. "If you refuse," it said, "legal fees and fines will eat up your half anyway, and you'll end up with nothing." My stomach twisted. I looked at the signature line. There was no lawyer's name, no firm, just Liam's name typed out. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or scream. It wasn't just about money anymore. This was something else, something uglier. Madison had come into my home, demanded what? Wasn't hers, and now this? A fake legal threat? I burst out laughing. Right there at the kitchen table, holding that ridiculous letter, I couldn't help myself. The more I read, the funnier it got. They were bluffing. It was so obvious. And then, as I looked closer, I noticed something else that made me pause. At the bottom of the letter, there was a signature, Madison's name, and underneath it, she had added a title, Legal Professional. I raised an eyebrow. Sure, Madison worked at a law firm, but she wasn't a lawyer. She was a legal secretary. Filing paperwork and answering phones doesn't give you the right to threaten someone with fake legal action. It didn't take a law degree to see that she was trying to sound important, more important than she actually was. I picked up my phone and called my actual lawyer. "You're going to love this," I said as soon as he answered. I read the letter out loud, word for word. There was a long pause on the other end. Then he laughed, a deep, amused laugh. "Oh, this is rich," he said. "She's bluffing, right?" I asked. "Oh, absolutely. But I'm going to check something real quick. Give me a day." I smirked. Sounds good. I wasn't about to let this slide. If they wanted to play games, I was ready. I had kept my distance, avoided conflict for years. But this was different. This was an attack. But as it turned out, I didn't have to do anything, because karma got to Madison before I could. A few days later, my lawyer called me back. His voice was full of energy when I picked up. "Oh, this is better than I thought," he said, barely containing his amusement. I leaned back in my chair. "Do tell," he chuckled. "Your brother's girlfriend? Madison? She's not a lawyer like we knew. She's a legal secretary. But that's not even the best part." I raised an eyebrow. There's more? Oh, yeah. She forged details in the letter. She altered the firm's official letterhead, inflated her job title, and made it look like the letter came directly from the firm. She signed it as if she had the authority to speak on their behalf. That's not just unethical. That's fraud. I blinked, my stomach flipping. Wait, actual fraud? Yep, he said. And guess what? I forwarded a copy of the letter to the law firm she works for. He let out a low whistle. They did not appreciate it. I grinned. What happened? They fired her, on the spot. No warning, no second chances. Just packed her things and walked her out. I let out a long breath. Wow. Yeah, he said. And trust me, that's just the beginning. She could be in real legal trouble for this. Falsifying legal documents, pretending to be a lawyer. It's serious. I shook my head slowly, still trying to wrap my mind around it. She really thought she could fake a lawsuit? No, he corrected me. She thought you were dumb enough to fall for it. That made me laugh again. Guess she learned the hard way. Guess so. There was a pause on the line. Then he asked, "So, what now?" I smirked. Now? I wait. And I did. For a week, I didn't hear from Liam or Madison. No calls, no texts, just silence. Then, one evening, there was a knock on my door. I got up slowly and walked to the door, already suspecting who it was. When I opened it, I found Liam standing there. But this wasn't the Liam I was used to. He wasn't smirking. He didn't have that usual look in his eyes, the one full of charm and fake confidence. No cocky grin, no jokes. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot. His clothes were wrinkled. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding eye contact. "Hey man," he said softly. "Can we talk?" I stood there for a second, then sighed. "What do you want, Liam?" He hesitated. Then he stepped aside like he was inviting me into my own doorway. He looked like someone who had just watched his world fall apart. And in a way, maybe he had. Behind Liam, Madison stood with her arms crossed tightly, her jaw clenched, and fire in her eyes. She didn't say anything at first, just glared at me like I had personally ruined her life. Liam shifted his weight from one foot to the other. He looked uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. Finally, he muttered, "She lost her job." I tilted my head slightly, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, really? How shocking." His jaw tightened at my tone. He looked like he wanted to argue but held it back. "Come on, man," he said. "She messed up, okay? But we're in a bad spot now. Real bad. She's got debts. Serious debts." I leaned against the doorframe, folding my arms across my chest. "And that's my problem because..." He looked up and met my eyes, and for a moment, he looked almost like the Liam I used to know. The one who used to dream big before blowing everything he had. But I wasn't falling for that look again. "I need help," he said quietly. I let out a short laugh. "You mean money?" He exhaled sharply like he'd been holding in that exact word. "Yeah, a loan. Just enough to get us through this." I shook my head slowly. "Unbelievable. First you try to scam me with a fake legal threat, and now you're standing on my doorstep begging for cash?" Liam looked down at his feet. He didn't deny it. He didn't argue. He just stood there in silence. "It's different now," he said finally. "No," I said firmly. "It's exactly the same. You screw up, and then you come to me expecting a bailout. You've never changed. Not once." That was when Madison snapped. She scoffed loudly and stepped forward. "Oh, come on. You've got more than enough. You're just being greedy." I raised an eyebrow. "Greedy? You literally tried to steal from me." She rolled her eyes with a dramatic huff. "Whatever. Enjoy your blood money." That was it for me. I didn't bother responding. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just slammed the door in their faces, and for the first time in years, I felt no guilt, not a sliver. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. But the next morning, everything changed again. I stepped outside, keys in hand, ready to head to work. I didn't get more than a few feet before I stopped cold. My car sat in the driveway, and all 4 tires were completely destroyed. Slashed. Deep, jagged cuts in each one, like someone had gone at them with a knife. The rubber was shredded, useless. I crouched down next to one of them, running a finger, gently, along the edge. The cuts were deep and deliberate. Whoever did this hadn't just been trying to flatten them. They had wanted to send a message. Any last bit of guilt I might have had? Gone. Vanished. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This wasn't desperation. This was personal. I stood up and pulled out my phone. My hands were steady. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't shaken. I was done. I called the police. An officer arrived within the hour. He walked around the car, taking notes, snapping pictures with his phone. Then he looked up at me. "You got any idea who might have done this?" he asked. I let out a short laugh. "Oh, I have a very good idea." I gave them both names, Liam and Madison. Full names, dates of birth, even Madison's former place of employment. I wasn't playing around anymore. Later that day, I called my lawyer. He picked up right away. "What now?" he asked, his voice light. I told him what had happened, the tires, the damage, my suspicion about who was responsible. He paused for a moment. Then he laughed. "Oh, this just keeps getting better," he said. "You realize we have Madison on record making legal threats against you, right? Fake legal threats?" I grinned into the phone. "Sure do." "This is open and shut," he said. "Between the fraud, the vandalism, and the threats, they're both in serious trouble now." Good. I was done playing nice. For years, I had been the safety net. I had been the one who picked up the pieces after every one of Liam's mistakes. I had kept quiet. I had helped. I had believed in him even when he gave me every reason not to, and this was how he repaid me. By trying to take what wasn't his, by letting Madison pull me into a fake legal trap, by showing up at my door like nothing had happened, asking for money. And now, this, slashed tires, it was the last straw. Liam and Madison thought they could scare me. They thought they could guilt me, pressure me, and manipulate me into handing over what I'd worked hard to build. But now they were going to learn something important. Actions have consequences, and I was finally ready to let them face every single one. The case moved faster than I expected. Within a few days, an officer followed up. They'd reviewed the security camera footage from one of my neighbor's doorbell cams. The camera faced the street, and clear as day, it showed two people approaching my car in the early hours of the morning. One was tall and walked with that familiar slouch. The other had a stiff, quick stride and long hair tied up in a bun. Liam and Madison. There was no mistaking them. They didn't even try to hide their faces. The police didn't need much more after that. The report was filed. My lawyer had already compiled a record of their fake legal threats, the altered document, the attempt to extort me. Everything was documented, clean, precise. By the time we submitted everything to the authorities, it was all lined up like dominoes. Charges were filed: fraud, attempted extortion, property damage. They weren't arrested immediately, but they were both served with notices. I heard from a friend that Madison lost her apartment not long after. Without her job, she couldn't keep up with rent. Liam wasn't doing much better, bounced from couch to couch, always trying to hustle his way back into a stable situation, still blaming the world for his problems. Not once did either of them try to apologize. Not a call, not a message, not even a half-hearted excuse. And that told me everything I needed to know. But the thing is, my story isn't really about revenge. It's not about winning some petty fight. I wasn't proud of how far it had gone. I didn't enjoy watching someone else fall apart, even if they had brought it on themselves. That's not who I am. But I had reached a point where I knew I had to protect myself. And that meant closing the door, really closing it, for good this time. The final hearing was quiet. They didn't contest the charges. Madison had hired a public defender. Liam didn't even show up. The court ordered restitution for the damages to my car, and both of them were put on probation with community service and mandatory financial counseling. When it was over, I walked out of the courthouse, stepped into the warm afternoon air, and just stood there for a moment. Not happy, not angry, just done. It had taken me years to get to this point. Years of giving chances, years of hoping Liam would turn things around, years of feeling like it was my job to keep him from falling. But that chapter had ended. I wasn't carrying his mistakes anymore. I got my tires replaced. I upgraded the security on my property. I went back to living my life. Quietly, steadily, responsibly, the way I always had. And for the first time, in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to look over my shoulder. As for Liam, I don't know what happened to him next. I stopped asking, stopped checking in. If he wanted to change, that was up to him now. I didn't hate him. I just couldn't keep paying for his choices. Sometimes people think family means you have to stick around no matter what. That blood comes before boundaries. But the truth is, love without respect becomes a burden, and loyalty without limits turns into a leash. I still think about our grandmother. She gave us both a gift. She wanted it to be a foundation, something to build on. And in a way, it was. Liam used his for a car that's long gone. I used mine to build something lasting. I think she'd be proud of that. But more than that, I think she'd understand why I finally said enough. Why I drew the line. Because sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone you care about is let them face the consequences of their own actions. And that's exactly what I did. That chapter's closed now, and I'm moving forward with both eyes open and zero regrets.